So what is the deal with Bitcoin and dentistry? I'm so glad to have two of my awesome friends here going to meet in a second to teach us about cryptocurrency. Maybe we can all retire tomorrow or hopefully by Monday. That's what they promised to have us do. Before I get started, I have two of these behind me, Dental Nachos and Dentist Job Connect. Dr. Matt Costa, one of my good friends that I've known for years, was able to find an associate to share in the joy of full contact arts and crafts with him. So if you would like to find an associate to share in the joy of full contact arts and crafts with you, just text HIRE to 215-543-6454. And if you're out there looking for a job, looking for that match, just text job to 215-543-6454. So Dr. Matt and Dr. Brad, you guys can start your videos when you guys are ready. And we'll talk about what we're going to talk about here. So I've known both of these guys well before Dental Nachos. I met Matt, I think in 2010 at a Hyacinth implant course, met Dr. Brad at a golf course where I was giving a course on implants, Coatesville, PA, home of Richard Hamilton, Rip Hamilton, right? That's from where Rip Hamilton's from. So before we jump into the Bitcoin talk, which I'm going to do, just tell us, Dr. Brad, a little bit of the day in the life of your dentisting life for you. Are you a practice owner? Do you work with other people? Tell us a little about yourself.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks for having me, Paul. I appreciate it. That's exactly right. Good memory. Coatesville, PA. It was a wonderful course, and it's great to see you doing as well as you are. I saw your vision a while ago, so congrats. I'm a dentist in Kennett Square, Pennsylvania. Graduated from Temple in '08 with Matt. He's a classmate of mine. Born and raised in the area, and have had my own practice for almost 10 years now. So doing it by myself, solo practice. So.
It's not easy. It's like running a circus every day. The animals don't try to eat you, just slowly annoy you. Why is the giraffe always getting off on July 4th, right? So, Matt, tell us a little bit of a day in the life of your dentisting life.
So yeah, I'm obviously practicing in Quarryville. So it's the southern end of Lancaster County. It's a group practice. So there's three of us now. Work Monday through Thursday, doing mixed martial art dentistry, as you call it, or whatever. So a little bit of everything, and then just kind of plugging along like everybody else.
Awesome. And you are someone who has someone sharing in the joy. I like that MMA dentistry. How did working with the Dentist Job Connect program help you increase your success and sanity?
It was fantastic. Yeah. So obviously, you guys set up a great program. Candidates are good matches, and it's like love connection, love boat, right?
Yeah.
It's great.
You need a lot of help on site, pre-pandemic for sure, but even post-pandemic things not so nuts. So appreciate that. So Brad, tell us a little bit about where did your interest in cryptocurrency start?
Yeah, terrific question. And it's got a long winding answer, but it's simplified. I've always been interested in finance, and I've studied it for a very long time. And having seen fluctuations in the market over my lifetime, '08, then this recent one, it's always kind of irked me certain things about that market. So when this came along, it was like a unique opportunity to look at something different. And it's in the presentation. I didn't buy it in 2010, but I've bought it recently, and I don't need to go into the details, but it's a fascinating thing. It's got a lot of similarities to the current stock market, but it can scare people away. So it's just something that
I'm glad you guys are here to demystify it. Matt knows me well. Explain it to me like I'm a 4-year-old. Brielle, you can join us if you want. We'd love to see you, but she got so excited for Bitcoin, she just had to pop herself on there. Brielle Client Services. Matt, where did your interest come with cryptocurrency and Bitcoin?
So likewise with Brad, I've always had an interest in economics, but going through college, dental school, all that kind of stuff, you kind of don't really have the time or opportunity to really study it. 2020 was a whole different animal for everybody, but one of the things that I did was take a deep dive on economics in particular and investing, and that's where everything kind of coalesced, and we met I ran into Bitcoin basically, and here we are almost 2 years later, and it just seems to be gaining steam, and it's just something you can't ignore anymore.
That's awesome. Well, Matt loves it, Brad, when I call him one of the best dentists on planet Earth. He loves when people make a big deal out about him. But I'll use an example. He's such a high-level restorative dentist, does so many great things, lecture for us. But bonding, big part of what we do, bonding. So you were bonding this whole Dental Nachos community together, because I got my team watching, I got dentists watching, anybody who likes to use money. This is what they come for, Matt. How to talk to patients, boring. Do this, but Bitcoin, they'll show up. So thanks for watching. You guys can drop questions in the chat. Before I turn over to you, Matt and I have a very similar likes of TV, Brad. Scrubs, 22-minute sitcom. So share with us whatever we get through. Great. We can have volume 2, Rocky 4 of Bitcoin, when Mr. T shows up with Dogecoin, all these things. So
Yeah, so I'll preface it. Paul did all the intros. We don't need to go there. I'm going to try to cruise through this, everybody. It's not to ignore your questions. It's a fascinating topic. It can go down many proverbial rabbit holes. Matt and I have scratched the surface, but I'm sure there's plenty more for us. So this isn't a lecture. It's not to tell you anything other than to expose you to information. So again, I'm going to roll with it. We're going to cruise through it. May sound rushed at times, and I may be wrong on some things. I anticipate, hearing your feedback. I left our email address, my cell. Feel free to reach out, call, text, anything. So the premise is, can you afford to ignore this? Everyone has different entry points for it, and it's not, again, to lecture to you. It's just to share information. So we'll get into it. The first thing is a disclaimer. You do have to preface these things. I'm not a financial advisor. This information, read through it. It's not financial advice. Do your own research, please. If you're interested, follow the rabbit holes. If you're not, and you have questions, reach out to us. We'll try to direct you, again, not as advisors, but just to share information among colleagues and friends. So yeah, just have some fun with it and see where it takes us. So what is money? That's been a fascinating question to me for my entire life. So, what that means is different to each of us. So basically the premise is, why should you care what money is really, I think, what it boils down to. We all have our own definition of money, but why should you care? And we'll get into that. So basically, my philosophy, that it's not mine, it's just an adopted philosophy. Time is the ultimate currency. So, what we do with our time helps to create the value we bring to the market. And if it's a free, fair market, that value should correlate to the expertise, the time we spend, the work we do. And that's in dentistry, it's in medicine, it's in, selling cars. So whatever it might be, or nachoing for that matter. So like I said, I met Paul a decade ago, and it's clear to see the time he puts in. So money should be a reflection of the value you bring to the market. Matt, we still good? Can you see me here? I think so. So if I hear otherwise, just pipe in. So time is money. We've all heard that before, right?
You're welcome to put your face on too next to Matt. I mean, he just looks like he's super interested in what you're saying, which I know he is, but you're welcome to start your video since you're our narrator. You don't have to. I'm just letting you know that we can see your presentation.
I just don't want to screw it. Let me try. I'm more than happy to show you my lovely face. I don't know if you can see me or not, but
no problem. You can narrate it like Morgan Bitcoin Freeman from the back. No big deal.
Yeah. It sounds extra creepy. So we'll stick with that.
Yeah, Matt Costa, he's just the face of Bitcoin. That's what he is. So
keep
doing it.
That's even better.
A hat that he didn't want you to see. So
yeah. No, I actually have my Bitcoin t-shirt over my face, so you can't see my face. But yeah, so we've all heard time is money. So I love this quote. Sadhguru is a pretty interesting guy, but time and energy are limited commodities. How effectively you use them is how effective your life is. Pretty plain and simple. So I think you get the gist there. So the interesting thing about time and energy, you've heard of like the laws of thermodynamics, can't be created or destroyed. So, essentially they're scarce resources. You only have 24 hours in the day, so on and so forth. So a monetary value is always going to be linked to time. So you don't schedule the same amount of time for an occlusal filling that you would for a crown prep or a full mouth rehab. So, and then the time you allot for those might decrease as you get better at what you do. So again, they're scarce resources. And what we're trying to establish here is that when you sacrifice your time and energy for money, there should be a fair trade-off there. That's a set of rules that we all live by. So inflation and why it matters. You may or may not have heard that term. If you have, it again is bantered about in the current media in different ways. So again, if it sounds like it has any kind of political tone, it doesn't, but things get misconstrued anymore. So basically this is fiat money that we have in our system, is what we've all grown up with. It's all we know about money, green pieces of paper. So the reality is, and Paul knows this, anybody who saw 08 with the TARP bill, 900 billion, like that was weird, but I didn't quite understand it. Recently, it's been 6 trillion and now it's more trillions. Like that's a lot of money. So fiat money is not a scarce resource anymore. So speaking of money, we're going to just talk briefly about hard money versus soft money. Hard money being, something that's the 5 things that are listed here: portable, durable, divisible, recognizable, and then the one that's not a bull is scarce. So they're all very important. I highlight scarce because that's kind of what inflation has to do with in a way. And, we'll talk about it, but I don't want to go too deep on that. So gold was always the currency, not forever and ever, but it's the one we know the most about. It's got a huge history. Really, 5,000 years is a long time. So it's not very portable was the main issue. quick slide on different forms of money. We don't remember when we were trading shells and beans for things, or beads, I should say. But basically it happened. Money is what we agree it to be. So I'm going to be quick on the history of money, but it's a very content dense topic. We could spend a lot of time talking about the history of money. So we'll try to glance over that just to be into Bitcoin sooner rather than later. First principles based approach is kind of like a physics philosophy concept that just says try to be creative about a problem. Don't so much just take it at face value, simplify things, but really ask questions and try to come up with creative answers outside the system. I love this quote, a really super interesting author, Yuval Harari. You can read the quote. It's pretty impactful, depending on how deep you want to dissect that. But money is what we agree it to be. Basically, it's a social contract. And, if I give you a green piece of paper, then that's what we say it is. But nowadays, more and more things are digital. We Venmo one another, we PayPal. So we're in some interesting times in a lot of ways. So basically, again, brief Byzantine Empire, about an 800-year period of super economic flourishing and fair trade. They use gold. So essentially, it transitions as technology changes and trade changes. Gold's not very portable, as we all know. Nobody's carrying around gold bullion per se. So they start to store it in warehouses. The warehouses become banks. The banks become central banks. And that's what we know in our time. Central bank was formed early 1900s, or I should say the Fed, I'm sorry. And so from that, it becomes the central bank policy that we're so used to. And we just, take it for what it is. Essentially, we're not given a whole lot of choice. So paper money is really to increase portability, and it, wink, wink, also helps pay for wars, and they are also very lucrative. So kind of tie in gold here briefly, because it is important in a lot of ways. So I'll try not to get bogged down. It's, again, incredibly content dense, as history tends to be. And so with that being said, you can kind of read along with me in the slide. I'm not going to read word for word, but when US wins, quote unquote, wins World War II, we get a lot of gold, we bring it back home. And then essentially, if I'm not historically accurate, you can shoot me an email or text. Again, I want to kind of be as accurate as I can, but we now peg the dollar to gold as the US dollar is the global reserve currency. Everyone agrees that the dollar is the thing. Bretton Woods is what that is. It's a very interesting time. I'm sure post World War II, I wasn't there, but now the US really has the ability to do kind of whatever they want. And the whole world's like, yeah, as long as you say we're good, we're good. The biggest thing here is do your own research again, but WTFhappened1971.com is pretty fascinating to say the least. So we come off the gold standard. It was Nixon who did it, factual statement, but he didn't have a choice, is my understanding, because countries started to come and ask for their gold because they saw some weird stuff going on and realized the US might be in some trouble. So when they did that, Nixon changed the rules. And then, we're now into the current state that we are. That was 50 years ago. A lot of things have transpired in 50 years. That I was born in 1980. I have not been here for all 50 of those years. But yeah, so we'll keep going. The last quote's fantastic. The monetary standard and the moral standard are inexorably linked. So the Austrian economics philosophy is, again, something I encourage you to look into. We are so used to Keynesian economics in this country and in the West, trickle down. You've heard, maybe you've heard some of these terms, but it's a whole different philosophy of economics based on human action, basically, rather than policy. So keep going here. Industrial Revolution and post-World War II era production, essentially, like economic growth and production, kind of stopped and halted. Industrial Revolution, making cars, these wonderful technological advances with the assembly line and the industrialization of essentially the world to a large degree, but mostly in this country, was a fascinating time. Brilliant minds at work, Henry Ford and the like. Terrific book, Think and Grow Rich, was written around that era. And then World War II, you got to ramp up a lot of production to make tanks and things like that. So once that's over, kind of we're like, okay, so now what? And there's a lot of changes. The boomer generation is kind of on the scene. And so the dynamics of families, women are empowering themselves, and rightfully so. It had been long enough. So we start to see a shift. The economy begins reflecting these dynamics. So you see further kind of walking through time incredibly quickly in the interest of the time of this talk. The market becomes more globalized. That's just going to happen with the advancement of technology. So basically that equals increased turbulence. The more variables you enter into the market, it can get a little, little hairy unless we let things actually play out the way they're supposed to. We get intervention, we get deregulation, we get certain things that are, probably well-intentioned. I'm not sure, but that's okay. I mean, this isn't, again, to go into the political arena. It's just to talk about the facts. So Wall Street gets deregulated. You can pinpoint a time and say the 80s under Reagan, 90s under Clinton, red, blue, left, right, doesn't matter, but it gets deregulated. And that's because Wall Street gets big. Like there's a lot going through New York City. It's a huge market. It's a huge entity. And now we're getting closer and closer to global trade. The biggest issue I wouldn't say in my opinion, but the financial products that are created are just not helpful in my opinion. I guess I can say my opinion. I don't think they really bring a ton to the market. And by virtue of that, Wall Street makes a ton of dough. So 2008, the mortgage crisis, credit default swaps, a bunch of these different things that if you've seen the Big Short, it's a fantastic movie. Seen it a few times. Just a really neat movie. It summarizes it pretty darn accurately. But essentially that mortgage crisis, they now call it the Great Financial Crisis because the Great Depression's already been taken. But essentially Wall Street gets caught with their pants down, pardon the crude phrase, but it's, it's true. It's a fact. The government bails them out by printing cash, and that equals firing up the printing presses. So we call it quantitative easing now. That's a fancy term for printing money. Sorry, taking a drink of water. So it piqued my interest. Paul was asking earlier, like how I found Bitcoin or what intrigued me about it. And that's like in 2008, I remember being a resident at Christiana Hospital, sitting there and watching really, really hardworking, genuinely wonderful human beings that were dentists lose their shirt overnight. Like if you weren't there, you wouldn't understand it, but it was the weirdest thing I've ever seen financially. They couldn't retire like overnight, working extra hours, extra days, not selling their practice. They were a year from retiring, 3 years, whatever their financial advisor told them. And again, not a slant at the financial advisor, it was accurate advice until the bottom fell out. So, the financial advisor didn't predict, nobody saw it coming. So there are a very select few. So if you watch the movie, you'll see who saw it coming. That kind of happened again in 2020. COVID was what it was. It is what it is, as they say. Everybody has their take on COVID. It's part of a huge global health thing, but also it has to do with finance as well. So what happened again there, the world economy got shut down, our practices included, for a good chunk of time. And we're still seeing that play out. But so essentially what we're seeing is more printing. So we'll keep going. Purchasing power is important to talk about. Gold per ounce, keep going here. So basically the premise of this is if we stayed on the gold standard, the cost of gold purchasing power would be equal or thereabouts today. Gold cost of a suit, same in 1902 versus today. The math gets a little clunky, but it's about true. As far as the dollar, not so true. So an extraction in 1902, 25 cents, and an extraction in 2021, $340, more or less. So when you think about that, you're like, oh, it's not that much difference, 25 cents versus $340, but it's a massive percentage increase. So the exponential nature of things, our brains aren't meant, they're literally not wired to think in exponential growth. So it's kind of hard to wrap your head around, and that's in and of itself a whole rabbit hole. So the cost of education, there's the majority of the group is dentists. So I tried to tie in, even though I'm a Temple guy, I'll throw Paul a bone with the pen slant there. And so basically the interesting fact in 1902, I thought it was fascinating when I was researching this, undergrad was less than dental school. So they obviously say, hey, we can cherry pick those dentists, crank up tuition. And this is tuition only. This is not room and board. This is not, apartment if you get it, whatever it is. So you can see the percentage increase. It's pretty shocking. So again, here we go, fire up the money printer. That's what happens when you, devalue the dollar, debase the dollar, whatever term you want to use. So getting into Bitcoin, guys, I'll try to bring it full circle a little bit just to get the information out there and see how you want to play with it and interact with it. But again, a content heavy slide. This is nowhere near touching Bitcoin, in my opinion. So Matt and I are really like way into this, but Matt has even more knowledge than I do. So basically, it's an inflexible supply, 21 million. It's an immune response to the disease of fiat currency. I love that line. This is about, not to go life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness, but it is about the life, liberty, and personal property, intellectual property, these kinds of things. If your dollar is being debased, devalued, and inflated to Lord only knows where, your purchasing power is disappearing and you don't even know it until it's time to retire. So we see the cost of goods going up. It's happening. It's not transitory. That terminology has already been wiped out. So it's here to stay. I don't know how bad it's going to get. I don't want to be an alarmist, but Bitcoin can be an absolutely wonderful hedge or whatever you want to call it. I look at it as more than that, but at the very least, I want to expose you to the idea of getting off zero, buying something. So Bitcoin Facts, that's a really cool website, casebitcoin.com. Some of you have probably been on there, but it breaks it down in some really neat things. That's where these charts are going to come from that I'm going to show very shortly. And we'll try to close it out pretty quickly here. But basically 10-year return on investment, you can read. So even a 1-year return on investment is pretty mind-boggling. Now everybody's like, oh, I'm doing great in the stock market. You are, I agree. I wouldn't argue that at all. But when you dump every dollar that gets printed into the market, assets only go up. So the big things there, a chart comparing Bitcoin, gold, and S&P 500. So again, check the website out. It's got some cool stuff with the M1, M2 money supply. And it talks about Bitcoin's volatility too, because it's volatile, right? But look at that chart. And really over 2017 to current, I would argue everything's volatile. Stocks don't go up forever. They just don't. And if they do, I'll be the first to say I was wrong. But Bitcoin is destroying the Vanguard S&P 500 as well as the iShares 20 plus Treasury bond. So, it's pretty awesome when you think about zooming out versus zooming in to see what's going on here. And I'll show another cool slide in a minute about Ethereum versus Bitcoin, which nails down the whole ball of wax. I think kind of cool. So here you go again, just Bitcoin on a chart versus gold, S&P, and the long US bonds. So it's again self-explanatory. I'm not cruising through this to be flippant or over or underemphasize anything. It's just for time. So action steps. I have a presenter part of this where I can't see my notes, but I'll just go off of memory. The action steps are pretty simple. Get off of zero, in my opinion. If you have none, I'm not going to tell you what to do because I'm not a financial advisor. And this is just me talking, but I would say to buy some. And, Matt and I can help you do that. It's free information. You can find it on the internet. I'm sure quite a number of you have heard of YouTube or, whatever, Substack, anything. Like just go look around if you're interested. If you're not interested, that's okay too. But get off of zero is really the only action step. Try to understand what it is. It'll take you down whatever, I hate to say rabbit hole because it's overused, but it's so true. It's a cool analogy. Whatever rabbit hole you want to go down. There's even a book, 21 lessons going down the Bitcoin rabbit hole. It's very fascinating. So coulda, woulda, shoulda, just so you can see retrospectively how not smart I am. I'm the first to admit that one as well. 2010, I did not invest $100 into Bitcoin. I was paying off my debts like every other dentist under the sun because that's what I was told to do. And like Matt said, we get so engrossed in what we do. We want to be wonderful what we are. I echo Paul's sentiment, not to boost Matt's ego, but he's hands down one of the best restorative dentists I've ever seen. And so that's a really cool thing. But basically I paid off some of my debt. If I had put $100 into Bitcoin, it would be worth, I took this information from an article from February of this year. It would be worth $48 million today. And that's a fact. You can't argue with that math. Technically, Bitcoin's down 7% today. So it would actually be worth $47 million, not 48. So 47 and change. So that's technically incorrect. If you've ever seen Office Space, that slide. I think it's more important. I've presented this now a few times, quite a number of times, and I've gotten great feedback, but I've also gotten some good critiques. So I welcome those also. And the best critique I got, or one of the best, was talking about, yeah, it's great, coulda, woulda, shoulda, but what about going forward? Like, this is not a retrospective talk. This is like, hey guys, let's collectively come together as a community and understand the importance of this. So opportunity cost is the the value lost if you don't do something. And I can share all the mistakes I've made sometime. There's plenty of them. But basically, I have not made the mistake of not getting involved here. I don't need to show you what I've done. I could if it was ever relevant, but it doesn't matter. I'm off zero, and the value of $100 looking forward. If you email me, text me, we want to have a conversation outside of this, I can go into the math. But Matt knows it even better than I do. But it's pretty fascinating stuff. Gold is probably not going to be here for very long. I don't know how long, but when Bitcoin, there's a saying, Bitcoin eats everything. When Bitcoin eats gold, it is currently a $1 trillion market cap. It will be a $10 trillion market cap. So you can do the math. So just very quickly, the other feedback I got, which was pretty cool, is, what about Ethereum? What about this? What about that with Dogecoin? What about Shiba Inu? All these other things that are very real, and some are more real than others. So what does that look like? Matt and I have our philosophy. We've been doing certain things individually and collectively. And so basically what it comes down to is, you can ask, it's not financial advice. It's just, some people talking, dentist at that. So there's use case projects. There's more to it than just Bitcoin. There's some people that are like Bitcoin only. I don't identify as a whole lot of anything other than someone who likes to talk about this stuff. Matt had I love this line. So if you look at it, like some of these projects are IPOs. They're initial public offerings before the initial public offering. So you can get in on something if you do your research and be early to the game. You're still early for Bitcoin, which is the fascinating, wonderful thing. There's huge potential in the other cryptocurrencies. Most, and I do mean most, have the potential to go to zero. So you do need to be careful. The NFTs, non-fungible tokens, whole fascinating way for artists to get paid for their creativity. And then you need to understand your risk profile. So quick chart, that's Ethereum. You can see that one I showed earlier where it was Bitcoin destroying everything. Well, Ethereum is, if you want to really get down to it, it's kind of smoked Bitcoin in a way. But, there's a whole bifurcation of the conversation there that I'm definitely not talking about. So this video is very cool. I don't know if it's going to play or not. We'll see if it does. It's a quick little background if it works.
Here, something. We're going to get a haircut and we're going to pay with Bitcoin.
It's got some subtitles as well. So this is the macro 30,000 view of why Bitcoin is important.
Aquí en Son. Y lo empezó a ocupar desde ese momento que escuchó sobre Bitcoin.
No, tenía miedo.
¿Cuánto tiempo pasó desde que usted supo para empezar a ocuparlo?
Quizás como unos 6 meses, porque no tenía confianza.
Ok. ¿Qué beneficios ve usted?
Por ejemplo, yo tengo dinero en el banco, ¿verdad? Y allí a veces en el año lo más que me dan son como $3 de ganancia, digamos. Y en esto yo he tenido ganancias de hasta $500, depende de lo que uno tenga, ¿verdad? Con eso hemos terminado de construir la casa.
Ah, qué chivo.
Ajá, entonces yo lo veo bastante favorable.
¿Cuánto le voy a cancelar?
$2.
¿Con Bitcoin le puedo pagar? Va, con ese código.
Sí.
We're going to pay Lily $2. Ya está. Satoshi.
So yeah, there you go. Matt has schooled me on a lot of this stuff. So I give him a lot of credit. He's a terrific friend. And so basically we'll take questions through the chat box or whatever. General premise is, get off zero, not financial advice, not a financial planner. Matt and I have a separate email. That's my cell. Call, text, email. Preferably don't call because I probably won't answer. Nothing personal. Ask my family. It's just kind of how I communicate. So text me is the best. Email is probably second best. I'll try to answer your call, but if I don't recognize the number, it's nothing personal. So I don't know if Paul, you want to swing in and take it over, but basically, there's some podcasts that you can follow and some books. Just reach out to me. I got some books in there too. Reach out to me anytime. I'm happy. I love this stuff, as you can hopefully tell. So yeah, Paul, thanks, man.
Great. Awesome job. You can bring your face back up, Karen. We have time for a few questions here. Someone asked, what websites do you recommend we check out for researching crypto and Bitcoin?
I'll turn that over to Matt while I'm trying to figure out how to put my face back on. So should I stop sharing, Paul?
Yeah, stop share. Then your face will be back on. Perfect.
Yep. You got it, man.
Matt, what do you think?
I'm sorry. Can you repeat that, Paul?
What, any websites good for researching crypto and Bitcoin?
Yeah, I mean, Bitcoin.org has a lot of information. I mean, nowadays you can just type in Bitcoin in a search engine and or YouTube, and you can just get tons and tons of information. It's going to be kind of all over the place. You know, again, Brad started off with just giving you kind of some history to it, because this is a lot of information to take in. It covers a lot of ground. So just trying to give you some background information.
We'll more episodes with you, Brad. Just type that email in the chat. People are asking for your email again, so just type
buddy.
it in the chat.
Yep. Put it in as we speak.
But on my investing app, there's a Bitcoin family. What is the best to invest in? Bitcoin, Bitcoin Cash, Bitcoin SV, or are they all the same?
So Bitcoin SV and Bitcoin Cash are actually forks from the original Bitcoin protocol. So Bitcoin protocol is the actual program. And essentially a group of people thought that they could make it better by changing some of the parameters. But once you change the parameters, it is no longer Bitcoin. So it's called a fork, and they branched it off, and it has different attributes so that it can function as a different thing. Bitcoin Cash was basically derived to set up faster transaction payments so that you can use it more like currencies that you're used to, like credit cards and things like that. For the sake of, you know, where we're going and what we think is worthwhile action steps in the beginning, Bitcoin original, Bitcoin, just Bitcoin, is the first exposure that you should get until you understand more of the other things.
Gotcha. So let's do this. I don't know if you remember Alex B. Keaton, very famous guy from Family Ties back in the day. So he did a thing, how a bill becomes a law, and Jennifer didn't know what she was doing, and he popped up from behind the podium and gave all the answers.
Yeah.
Got a weird memory up here.
That's
so
fantastic.
There's a guy, me, who has $5,000. Break it down in the most fundamental 4-year-old steps. I have $5,000. How do I turn that into my first Bitcoin purchase?
I'm taking that one.
Okay.
So this is my thought with it, is like, call us, text us if you have further questions, but $5,000 into Bitcoin today is the best thing you can do. If you have a higher risk profile, we can split it up. I'd say 50% of Bitcoin.
I'm talking, I need the most basic steps. I got to get a wallet. I got to do some.
You go to Gemini.com, you sign
Gemini.com, right?
and it walks you through it. It's Coinbase is also an option. Matt, you pipe in there. What's your take?
Yeah, so to buy Bitcoin or any cryptocurrency, you have to think of it like you're buying a stock. So you need to go to an exchange.
Which one do you go to? This is like this is the time I want the dentist to tell me what they do for their tooth.
Gemini.
I use Gemini.
Save it.
Yeah. Google Gemini. It's the Winklevoss twins. Go to Gemini.com, log in. Sign up. You have to scan in your license. It's the most secure thing I've ever touched. They like hawk you about everything. So they know what they're doing. Read Bitcoin Billionaires. You definitely know that they know what they're doing. But basically, don't read a book. Just go on Gemini.com.
There's a lot of yada yada there, by the way. I get rid of the yada yada. I go to Gemini.com.
And follow the instructions.
I follow the instructions. I put $5,000 into this Gemini.com account, like a Schwab account. Now I'm on this.
Yes.
Correct.
And then you just push, I want to buy Bitcoin.
Purchase. Yeah. You click on it. There's there's a user interface, just like any other brokerage. You can buy it, you buy it, you approve it, and it's launched. And then the Bitcoin is in your account on that exchange. And that is a whole nother conversation about storage.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we'll do 2 more in a second because I'm going to go, but someone said, can you touch on secure storage of crypto assets? Is a wallet necessary? And
yes, real quick, a buddy of mine just did this after we were talking, and you can't do more than $5,000 initially because they're that secure that you can't just jump in and do 50, so it's 5 is the max. It's funny you pick that number, but go ahead.
Gotcha. Okay. Someone said, what do you think of Gemini is good. What do you think of Cash App, fiat and Bitcoin use?
Yes, Cash App's a good app. Yeah.
Yep.
I think we could do a 2-hour course with Jason Smith, and people have 2 questions, Matt. We got questions coming out the whatever you call it, the yin yang.
It's good, but I mean, I think this.
My own sponsor coordinator, Ariel, asked more questions in this than she has in the past 5. Crypto on Robinhood secure?
Get off of Robinhood.
Yes, immediately. If you want the quickest answer, get off Robinhood now. That's a quick dentist answer.
We
transfer.
have patients asking us to use crypto to pay for treatment. What would you recommend the first step to start with that?
So I just got pretty close. I have one more verification step. Go to crypto.com.
Crypto.com for taking.
Or you sign up as a vendor essentially, and then you walk through the process. They're trying to simplify it, Paul, but keep me in the lane. But basically, yeah, crypto.com, do your own research, check it out. There's Strike is another one, but I don't think it's licensed in PA. BitPay, thank you, Matt. Yeah, there's a few here and there, but crypto.com is, Matt Damon.
People would have to, in a serious question now, if you're a dental practice, Pennington Dental Associates, I take $10,000 for an implant case through crypto. This now is like a stock inside of my account because it loses value or could gain
Well,
value.
that's fascinating because the biggest risk I'm taking by accepting it is the taxable event. So I now hold that asset. And I think to your point, yeah, I think it's kind of, Matt, you can interject. I think it's kind of like accepting a stock certificate, but it's an asset more than, so essentially, if we look at this as eventually we're walking into a world where these are currencies, then it becomes more clear, but the SEC is involved, it gets a little hairy. So not a financial advisor, but, check with your accountant, check with your attorney. But yes,
the running joke is that the SEC thinks that it's a security, the CFTC thinks that it's a commodity, and the FAA thinks it's an airplane. So the laws have to be written on all of this. We're still looking for regulation and guidance, but it all can be done.
I'll take it all day.
This is like the money version of one of my favorite video games from the 1980s, Oregon Trail.
Can you break an axle?
Make sure Terry Brock is one of my awesome coaches. Make sure Terry interviews you guys. He's very into crypto. So Terry, drop your info. He should have every Tuesday at 2 p.m. He does tech tips with Terry on Dental Nachos.
So cool. Yeah, it's awesome.
He was asking about NFTs, but I don't know if we have the time frame to go into NFTs. Maybe that'll have to be the to be continued.
Yeah, that's a whole literally that's like a 3-day course, I think.
I think the feedback though, Paul, I mean, what should be pretty obvious is that everyone recognizes that their dollars are losing value around them, and no one knows what to do. It's uncharted territory because the speed at which it's happening is just scary, and you can't help but notice it that your dollar's just not going far. So everyone's looking for a better thing. Everyone's looking to go to something else.
Matt, touch real quick on the actual inflation number. Like they're saying 6-5%. Like it's nonsense. What's the real?
So the way they calculate inflation numbers, they usually just select a grouping of things, but they conveniently now in these calculations leave a lot of stuff out. Some really, really smart people when looking at it estimate the real inflation rate anywhere from 10 to 15% per year right now. Which means that if you're not getting 10 to 15% return on your money, then you're losing money to inflation, which is really scary. So
it's actually alarming.
I'll interject. This was fantastic. I can tell we're going to have many episodes of this. The take-home message is that you should text higher to 215-543-645 so you can get an associate, so you can spend your day figuring out Bitcoin. Right?
I'm texting you when I hang up.
Yeah. So Dentist Job Connect, you can meet someone just like Matt did. Thanks so much, guys. You guys were awesome. I'm going to take us off Facebook Live. Stay here on Zoom Paul. For a second. We got so many good people watching. Listen, Matt Costa's done this before. I got to go talk to someone in the other room, but if you want to answer some questions here on Zoom, go right ahead. So my team will shut it off. You guys can answer the questions. Ariel will be there whenever you feel like.
Send money, Paul. Send me Bitcoin.
Bitcoin.
Send me money.
All right, guys.
So, all right, you guys can answer some more if you want in the chat, like you did on New This Boost Camp. Terry's on here. You guys can make Terry a panelist if you want to have more fun. I'm leaving. See you guys later.
Later, Paul. Thanks, buddy.
Yep.
Everybody, if you want to reach out to Matt and I, please email or text me or myself. Matt and I will continue the conversation. I'm not opposed to answering questions. I got my kids just got dropped off after school, so I got a boogie, but it's been great. Thank you guys. Feel free to reach out. I'll get back as quickly as I can, I promise. Thank you.